Alright, so basically this returns an object. Let's see. Sorry for the delay as well. I know it's a different time and everything. Um, some stuff happened, but trying to remember where I was at here. I think so. Basically, I just want to finish up this reducer really quick. So copying everything from the state and then returning empty array to clear the messages. Then I have one more case, and that's for the setting of the user ID. And that just simply returns the state and the user ID. We set that to the action.payload dot underscore ID, and then the token. Now you don't have to set the token here if you don't want to, because all you have to do is you can do local storage dot set item, and then you can put things in the local storage like that. So just showing you both ways of doing that there. And we also want to always have a default case or a switch. And I just simply want to return entire state. So if none of these actions get hit or whatever, for whatever reason, it just returns the state. And so that's basically the entire reducer there. Let me see. Okay, so now I actually want to work on a component. Oh, sorry about that. Now I actually want to work on a component section of this. So basically, all the components, starting with the app component. And so basically, let me see what I want to do here. Do I want to make all the components? I'll just start off with this component here, the app component, and then go through each one. So basically, um, we want a few methods here. We want these methods for class component type methods. So we want to do a function just like this. And we want to do this dot set state. So this basically toggles the register form. So already user by default will be true, and that'll show the login form. And you call this whenever you basically have to want to toggle it. And the reason why I have it in two separate methods is because I have two separate forms, and so I gave a different method for each form here. I gave one a toggle register and then the same one for a login. And set state already user to true. Then I want to have one for clearing of the messages. So if you wanted to add messages, and then that's it for the methods. And so now here's where the actual the most complex part of this basically this component would be. And so I wanted to use stateless functional components and class components to show you how to use both. And that's kind of also how I did this one here. So I figured it would be a nice way to show it. So inside of the render lifecycle method, this is what's ran every single render. So I know you have lifecycle methods like component did mount, component will unmount, component did update. So we're not using any of those for this class component particularly, but we're going to be using the render method, and this is how we're going to basically do it. So first, above here for the form, I want to create a constant. And so I want to do login is going to be equal to this.state.user, and this is a ternary operator. So basically, if this.state.already_user is true, then we want to basically do a component called login form. And basically, this component is going to take any messages that we want to pass into it. So this.state.message. It's also going to take in a toggle of register, because remember, the toggle register method toggles the switches from the login form to the register form. So we want to pass in that one. Because this is a class component, it'll be this.toggle register instead of just toggle register. And then I also want to pass in clear messages. So let me just put this on a separate line here. So clear messages, then it'll be this.clear messages. Like that. And then that's it for the login form component. Now we want to do the same for the register component. So we can come down here and do the OR, and then it'll be a register form. And it takes in the same things except now tagging login. Oh wait, I forgot to put this at the end here. Get messages. This is that state.message. Login. And then clear messages. And that's it for this ternary. And so each render basically checks this in return, because this is a state member, like a state basically like it's part of the local component state. And so basically it checks it each time it renders. And so inside of this return here, this is where we want to do some different stuff. So first, let's just get rid of this div. And then let's also tab this back one. And so inside of here, this is where I want to bring in that app provider and app consumer, because we're constantly looking for const state changes, or basically changes in the actual app state. And because we can't really do that like we will with our state here, because it's not a local state, it'll only be a static change and it'll only change once. You have to actually, because like basically if you want to only look for one change when you render a component, you can do static context type is equal to, and then like the app context like this, and it, like basically you'd have to bring it in. Or you could use like the actual app dot context type. It's the same thing, but that'll only give you one change. And if you want to constantly look for changes each render, you have to put the consumer in inside of the actual return here. And so basically, first let me bring it in. So what we gotta do, and then this will just be dot slash context slash that. I want to bring in the app provider, and then the app consumer. And so basically inside of here, I just want to do, you have to wrap. Now this is where that children, basically that children variable inside of our state file. That's basically what this is here. We're wrapping all the components and everything inside of that provider. So we would do app provider like that. And then basically inside of there, this is where we want to actually wrap the consumer that consumes the context. Like that. And then inside of here, basically we want to do JSX because we're getting it like a function, like we're passing in a prop. We want to destructure it, and then we want to use the arrow function to basically do whatever we want for that current instance of the context. So basically what I want to do is JSX like that, and then we do parentheses, destructure, because remember, it's like parameters. We want to grab the user ID, and then we also want to grab the is loading. And then what we simply want to do is we want to do arrow function like that. Remember, we can do this because we're simply just outputting something, and you'll see why in a minute. And so basically what I did was I had a couple of like local variables. Let loading value equal to null. Let ID to render equal to empty string. And basically I did a check of if user ID, meaning that it's not undefined, is so not equal to empty string and it's not equal to undefined. You can also just do user ID without putting that part there. And basically, oh wait 1 second, this pop up. Okay. So basically, then I set the actual ID to render the local variable to that user ID. Then I also, I logged it, but that was for testing. And so here I want to do sets the loading JSX value. And so what I want to do here is do if is loading, meaning that it's true. But I simply want to do loading val equals, and then we're returning an expression, so you want it in parentheses. And what I did here was I simply just did a H1 of loading. And you can do whatever you want here. You can even like do a GIF or something. And basically did style. I did inline styling, so that's 2 curly braces. And then I did the color. And I just did let's see, black. So 60. So that's 60. And then I did a text align of center. Like that. And basically that's it. For what we need to check, and this is all inside of that if the user is not undefined or not empty string, which is what by default what it is. And so now it's still inside of this function, basically this anonymous function. I now want to return the actual components that we want to render to the screen. So we're going to do another return statement. We're returning an expression again. And see, this return statement basically returns it from the function and then actually outputs it to this return statement, which is what's shown on the screen, and that's why we had to do it this way. And so inside of here, I just want to actually do a div. Wait, let me change this. That, and I should be able to. There we go. I want to do a div, and I want the class name. You have to use class name in React. And I want this to simply be app body, which remember in that CSS file, that was the class for that. And so now I just want to do the app header, which is another component that I'm going to make. And then it's going to be some JSX. And this is going to output the actual ID render field. So this is a ternary as well. And this is going to do, well, first if it's not equal to empty string, then we just simply want to output some JSX. So we need an expression for that. And I just simply want it to be another div, and then inside of there, I want it to be the actual album grid, like that. And then if it's not, if it is equal to empty string, then I just want to simply do the expression of that login, which remember up here was just the login form, register form expressions there. And then right below that, I just simply want to do that loading val, which is if something's loading or not. And then the app footer. And then that's it. So this is the entire app component here. Very simple. Basically the header And then this part is either the album grid or the login or register forms, depending on what, if the ID is not equal to empty string or not. The loading value here if something's loading, and then the footer. And so basically I have to create these components first. So I'm going to, in the source folder, I want to create another folder called components. And this is where I actually want to create the components. So app header.js. I guess I'll start with that one. Also, let me actually bring those in the app component before I forget to do that. And so let me do import, and I'm gonna call it a login form. Now, whenever you're using stateless functional components, when you want to import them in, you have to destructure them because they're like they're functions. So basically, let me see, register form. This is just so that we don't have to come back and import these ones later for it to work. So I'm just gonna import them in now. And import app header. And another thing you probably want to do is in your components folder, you want to probably split all the components via their page, like if you're using Rag Router DOM or something, or like some type of router. Um, and basically, you want to do that just so that you can identify more easily what components go where. Um, you can also have components like utility components, which this is like a message component, or 404 not found. Um, Basically, like just different components, like basically that you can use throughout your application, no matter what page as well. Alright, so that's all we need to bring in. And so now I can close this. And inside of the app header, I just simply want to. If you have the snippets, you can just do RAFC like that, and it'll create uh, basically a stateless functional component for you with the same name. And inside of here, I actually just want to do an H1. H1. I just simply want to say album creator. And then this will be last name. Nope, not class. Last name. And it'll be app upload header. Like that. And then that's it. So there's nothing else that needs to be done for that one. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. And so basically that's done for this component here. I'm sorry if like the video now is a lot more choppy. I just lost my place after I was working on it yesterday. And so it's kind of hard for me to really um, be as fluid this time around. So basically, next we want to do, I created an alert component as well. If you wanted to actually use that, so I can make that really quick. And so basically, it's another functionless component. Inside of the div, it just simply displays the message that we destructure from up there. If you're using it, I didn't use it in this app, but I just made it just for it to be there. And so you have that. And then now I want to actually do the, I guess we'll do the app footer, and then so we'll do And so basically, I want to also import the global app CSS for this one. And inside of here, I just want to put a class name of app footer. And then I want to do a H3. And then the H3 is simply going to do, it's simply going to have something called and copy, which is the copyright symbol. And then I just put my name there. You can put whatever you want. There's other cool ones like and M dash, which gives you basically like a dash. You got and times, which gives you the delete symbol. And there's other ones too. It's pretty cool. And so I want to do some inline styling here for this one. I just simply want to do a margin of auto and 0. Up, down, auto, left, right, 0. I want to do a width of 30%. I want to do a color of white. Let's see. And then I want to do align self to center. And then I want to do justify. Let me put this on another line here. I'll just keep going. Justify self. I just want that to start. You can also do flex start there as well. And then I want to do a text align of start. And so inline styling is really useful because you can just put in there whatever you want. Also, if you don't want to put it there like that, you can create an actual object literal, basically right above the return statement, and then you could just pass that in there as like the style, and it'll work just the same way. And so that's it for the footer. So now I want to actually get to the components that actually, I guess, aren't just presentational components. And so the login form and the register form are going to be very similar. So I'm going to work through those really quickly. So we'll do login form first. And so what we want to do in here is simply, well, first let's use the snippet. And I also want to bring in a couple of hooks. So we use context because we're using context from the con state, our app state file. And then use state because we're creating local state. And so we have to use that when we're using the functional components. And I also wanted to, let me see, I want to bring in the context. App context. Just do, oh, let's do that. There we go. Let's see where we're at here. Let's see, dot, context, state, app state. And then it'll be the app context because we have to do that in order to use it. And then I also want to bring in that alert component. And that'll just be from because we're already in the same folder, so /alert. And so first I want to destructure a few props. And so it'll be that toggle register because remember we're in the login form, so we're going to switch to the register form if need be, and then clear messages and then the actual message. And so above the return statement here, I simply want to set up a couple of local state variables. So we use array destructuring for this. I'm gonna name it email. Then I'm gonna name the function set email. Then I'm gonna do use state like that. And then we can just leave the default of empty. You can put a default of empty string in there as well if you want. And then this will be password, set password. And so now what I want to do is I want to bring in the login user. method from the global state. Remember, that's the app state. Remember, that's the method that basically like does our Axios request for us. So we bring in login user, just like in the class component we're destructuring. Use context and then global context, app context, because that's basically what we're doing there. Um, oh, I forgot the equal sign. And then basically, I want to create a local variable called message map. And then a message.size, meaning that if there's any messages in the array, it should be .length.size. And then so basically message map is going to be equal to message.map. And we simply want to map each message. You want to set it to an expression. Inside of there, we just simply want to do inside of there, we just simply want to do a div. And then we want to use the alert component like that with a class name of alert message, then the actual message. And then we want to give this div a style. And I'm just going to do inline styling here. It's going to be a margin bottom. It's going to be 10 pixels. And that's it for our message component. So I can just be message message handling. And now I want to do let alert be equal. Yes, I did let alert, and then I said alert is equal to message, not equal to empty string. There's a ternary, and then basically we're going to render that message map that we just made, or we're going to do null. And that's what we're actually going to be putting inside of the return expression. And so now I want to create a few functions. So because this is a stateless functional component, we have to put constant in front of the functions that we create inside of it. And then basically this takes in the event parameter. And there's going to be a password one just like it. So on password change. And this basically is whenever the user types anything in the input field, it basically sets it to that state variable so that we can use it when the user is done typing. And so now I also want to do format user. First, let me actually do that here. Set email. It'll be e.target.value. Because we're going to call this for on change inside of this return statement here, and it'll set this each time to whatever currently is in there. And we want to do that for the password as well. Now I want to create another function called format user. And this simply want to do e-prevent default because this will be similar to like if we're trying to do if we're submitting a form, we want to do stuff with it first before we submit it. And so basically I'm going to create a new object and I just want to put in the email and the password because we're logging in. So I want a name for this one. And I just simply want to I want to stringify it. You can do JSON stringify one step as well if you want to. And then basically I want to call the method, so login user. and I want to pass in that data. And then I also want to basically clear these here. So I want to actually above that, I actually want to clear it. Clear the input fields here. And then I also want to clear messages if there are any. And in order to do that, you want to bind it like that. And actually, I'm not sure if you can bind this here. I'll remove it for now. So basically, now we want to put the alert turn area in here. That'll be at the very top. And then we want to create a form. So let me switch this over really quick. That. And so basically, we don't want an action for this form. We simply want a class name of app form, a method of post. Then we want to do on submit here, and we want to set it equal to that format user function, like that. And then inside of the form, we simply want to just do an input, type email, like that. And we want the name to be email as well. We don't need an ID. And then we want on change. You want the one that has said you want the one that said JSX attribute. Basically, we want to pass in that on email change there, like that. We want a class name of app form input. And then we want a placeholder um, of email like that. And now we want to do the same thing for the password here. So we'll make another input. Type password this time. And then we want the name to be password. And then we want on change this time to be on password change. And then I want it class name to be app form input again. And then I want a placeholder of password. And then right below that, I just want a button that just says login. And that'll be a type submit. It'll be a class name of app form button. And then I want a button below the form. This will be when switching over to the register form. So I want this one to say register. I want to do class name app form button as well. Then I want to on click. And it'll be toggle register.bind. Then we want to pass in this. Then that's it. And so basically this will bind it and it'll send the event almost like with Angular where you emit it back. It'll basically send this back to the app form here, and then basically it'll set that state and it'll change the form here when it re-renders based off of that. and then it'll show the other form whenever the user clicks on it. So that's basically how that works. Now I want to do the register component here. A lot of this is similar. So I'm going to just copy over the entire thing here and change a few things. Let me see. So now I just want to put a first name field here. And okay. It doesn't really do anything with that in either one of these, but it's there if you want to do something with it. Okay, so basically I just want to set this to use states. And let's see. I want to bring in register user this time now. And I want to basically create the function here for this. Alright, so format user now, I want to pass in that name as well. And we basically set that to first name because that's what I called it up there. So we have to do it like that. And then we want to also set first name back to empty string as well. And then we want to stringify the data. We want to call register user now, like that. And then inside of the actual form, we need to add that input. So this will be basically the same thing. I don't know why this is really good. Yeah. And basically, it should be of type text. And then it should be name. And then on first name change. Add form input. And then add a placeholder of first name. And basically, I want to change the buttons. So now this should be register. And this other one should be login. And then it should be toggle login instead of toggle register. So I got to bring that in up here. And then that's it. So these are both of the forms there. So now not lastly, because I still got to do the grid item. So next we'll do the album grid, because I mean this component here is there's a lot that's going on in this one. So we'll do. So I want to just bring in a few things. First, let's use the snippet. Now I want to bring in a couple of hooks. I used a lot of different hooks for this one. Basically, I'll explain each one when I bring it in. So we want to use context, use state, use layout effect, use effect, and then use ref. And then I basically want to bring in a grid item, which I didn't make yet, but that'll be like basically each grid item, each grid item will be a component inside of the grid that I'll be using. And actually, I'm going to be using Material UI Core for that. So we'll do Well, let me just import these statements and then I'll basically download material UI core. Here this time from. You can just use the regular display of grid if you want as well. It doesn't really matter. Um, so we'll do. Let me just keep it consistent. We'll do import. We want to bring in that app context. And we want to bring in Axios because I made an Axios request in this component here. I made a couple. And then we just want to bring in that global apps CSS like that. There we go. There we go. And so basically, inside of this component here, we're not bringing in any props, but we create some state variables here. So we'll do array descriptor and well, first let me bring in the actual user ID and the method that I for deleting a picture from the global context here, the app context. And so const. And so now we're basically bringing in these things. Well, I brought in the user ID and delete picture from the app context, but here we're actually creating some variables here for our local component state. And now I'm all over the place. This will just be by default empty array. Then we'll do open upload, set open upload. That's going to be used to, well, I'll explain it in a minute. That'll be use state. That'll be set to false. Grid item list, which is the actual state, which we're going to be using to actually set it to the return expression. Because we can't just set it via the actual the the picture list, because we have to do some things to the grid item list first in order to return it, because it's JSX. This is just simply an array of objects, but this is JSX. Because we're going to be doing some HTML components and HTML tags in there and some components. And so basically then we'll do map switch, which basically is just a boolean that toggles, basically just calls a use effect hook that I have, and I'll show you that in a minute. And so basically we want to do upload form state, because basically this upload open thing is going to basically just call the upload form, which if you go into the app CSS, you can see that it had a z index of like 3 or 4. And that's because when I'm calling this, I want it to basically go over everything else, almost like a little. I didn't add a transition like to do a little animation sliding in from the bottom, but you can do that if you want to. Basically, it just goes over everything. I use the background of alpha in the app CSS instead of using opacity, because when you have opacity of a parent, basically a parent class in CSS, it overrules the children class. And so basically, whenever I'll do the opacity, it will make the form like kind of see through as well. And I didn't want that, so I just did the background with the RGBA, and then I just set it that way, just to let you know about that as well. So basically, we want to create some more state variables here, and this will be pick file. And this is going to be um, basically the name of the picture once the user actually chooses one from their computer. And by default, it'll be choose picture. And then we want to do the actual name of the picture. which we're also going to get when they choose a picture. It'll be use state empty. So now I want to create another one, and this is going to be if the picture is loading. And this will be use state to false. And then I want to create use that ref, the use ref hook, and that's basically like you can access DOM elements directly. So like if you have like a div or something, you want to access it, you can set the ref to that value. But you can also use refs to basically store things in memory, almost like a use state hook if you actually use it in a certain way. If you use ref.current, which I'll show you, basically that's how you can store it um, basically in memory so that you can use it and it doesn't get lost each render. But by default, this will be null. And I want to create the headers again. Um, I can call this options, I guess, again. So we'll do options. Inside here, we want a field of headers. And we just want that to be an object. And then we want content type. We want application JSON. And then I want the token. This is for our Axios request. And I just want this to be local storage, get item, token. And so basically, let me just keep going. So this is where we use our use layout effect hook. So use effect and use layout effect. The main difference is use effect runs basically things after the screen is rendered for that render. Use layout effect basically runs it before it renders. So if it's something's dependent on so if the layout basically is dependent on a certain side effect of something changing, that's why you would use layout effect. If it's not dependent on it, then you can just use effect. And so what'll happen is I want to use layout effect here. This basically takes in an anonymous function because basically we want to run something here. And it takes a second argument, and now this second argument basically determines how much it runs. So if you do an empty array, it'll by default run once. Like it'll run once and that's it, basically when a component mounts. If you don't put a second argument here at all, if you just do this, it'll be an infinity loop, and so you don't want that. And then if you put some type of variable in here, it'll only run this again whenever that variable changes. So if I had a variable called like, for instance, like run again, whenever run again changes, this will actually this whole like method will run it, like this whole function will run again. So it's like a callback almost. And that's basically like how it works. And so I want to basically do if the user ID, which we got from that con state, from the app state. And I basically want to do is not equal to empty string, and I want to do axios.get because I want this to run only once, and I want it to run before stuff is like rendered on the screen, and I want to do a template literal syntax, and I just want to remember I did the proxy in the package JSON, so that we don't have to do this part here for the domain. And so I just simply want to do API/items because that's what it was, and then retrieve. So I want to hit that endpoint. Then I want to do user ID. And then I want to pass in the headers. And then I want to do basically returns a promise. So use that then. And for the response, let me just create my cache as well. So we get an error, we want to log it. And so basically for the response, I want to create a temporary array. I want to set it equal to res.data.pictures, which is what we called it on the back end when we returned that list of objects. I called it pictures. And then basically I want to do, I want to create another one called updated temporary. And here I just want to do temporary. map, and I want to basically map through, and I want to use the second field, the parameter map, which is the index that it gives you. I just want to basically return, so it's an expression, so we have to use um, parentheses here, and then I want to use the spread operator, so I want to use the curly braces, and I want to return each picture like this, because I want to return the entire object, but then I also want to do a comma, because I want to set that picture ID field, which is what I'm also basically getting for the object, and I want to basically set that ID field to the IDX, which is basically an index. So basically what I'm doing is I'm mapping through each one of these objects, and I'm assigning it an index, so that when we pass it to the grid item and we use like the bind it to, when we delete a certain one, we know what index it is, so that we can delete it from the overall array inside of the picture list here, and then map through it again and then update it accordingly. So that's basically what I'm doing here. And so now we simply want to set the pictures. We want to do updated temp array, and then we want to toggle map switch, which I didn't make yet. I'll still just do the function like that. And then that's it for this. Basically, I also want to put an else here. This will basically just say the user ID is null when or basically user ID is empty when the pictures when get pictures is called. Alright. And so basically that's it for this use layout effect hook. This basically runs every time like basically it'll run once when a component mounts. Also, you might get a warning here saying that like there's certain dependencies that aren't here because I'm using variables in here, like, and you don't have to worry about that. That's just letting you know that a bug could happen. But in order to get rid of that warning, you can just simply do ESLint dash disable next line, and it'll ignore that for you. And we'll make the toggle map switch in a minute. I'll just do it right now. So const toggle map switch. Basically, all that does is just basically sets the actual map switch variable, and it just basically sets it to the opposite of it, like that. And that basically just toggles that, and that map switch is what's used to run the use effect hook, which I didn't make yet. And it'll run that each time when it toggles, meaning that there's some changes, so I gotta map through it again and then out and like return the JSX components. And so basically, I set pick file, and then basically that'll be equal to, and then I want to set the file. So you can do target.files, and because it's an array of files and we're only doing one, I want to set it to the first index. And I want to set the pick name to e.target.files and then dot name, like that. And so basically, that'll be called whenever the user uploads a file. And we want to do, let's see, I want to do check if logged in. And then so if user ID is not equal to an empty string, meaning they're logged in, and I want to do a return, and I want to return simply the H1 that says add pictures to see him here. and I want to give that some styling. We'll do text align, center, and then color black, and then else. Oops. I want to return another H1, but this time it should never actually be able to get to this because they have to be logged in order to see this component anyway. But for whatever reason, basically, like if you don't authenticate it on the back end, they can get here. Like if, I mean, not authenticate on the back end, but if you don't protect this route on the front end, they can basically type it in their URL, and then you have to basically either redirect them or you can just display the messages like you must be logged in to view it. Um, and basically, I get like that's when this will come into use, I guess you could say. Um, so I'll do style. We'll do text align center. And we'll do color black. And now I want to create the open upload form. This just sets the open upload to the opposite of it. And I know this is a lot of functions, but when you actually like look at it after like it's all done and you just look at each one, you'll see like it conceptually like how like how it works and everything. And so basically next I want to create another method of const add picture, add a picture. I just named them different so the names would be different from what I named it in the state before I brought it into the actual component. So in reality, you can just call this add picture if you want. So basically, prevent default because we're submitting a form. Now I want to do first. I want to close the upload form. So I want to do set open upload, and basically you can set it to false like that, and then you can do set pick loading. And now you can also call open upload here. Actually, yeah, I should call that. That doesn't make any sense. I'll set it like that. I'm not thinking. Open upload form like that, and then set pick loading. I want to set that to true. So there's a picture that's loading. And I want to create a temporary array here. And then I want to basically create a form data object. And so I want to do const form data. You can do let as well. It doesn't matter. Form data, which is a JavaScript class. And basically, I want to do this should be file path from the file input. I want to do form data dot append because we're going to be appending on a file. So I want to do pick file because remember that's the file path from that state that we have up here, right here. This user image is going to be the name that we name the input name attribute for the input file input. So that has to be the same. It has to be the same on the back end as well. So let me see form data let bind type be equal to form data dot get image type, and then verify that the file is an appropriate MIME type. Do it MIME type. This returns just the image part as well, so it'll be not equal to image/JPEG or and MIME type is not equal JPEG like that. And PNG. Then we just want to do form data dot delete. Then we can pass in user image. And then I want to do the new object is the returned object literal from the back end. So basically, I want to create another headers object here. And this, the new object thing is basically what we're returning, like if it's successful. And that's why I put it there like that. File headers, I want to do equal to headers. And I guess I'll just say file options. We'll do headers, and I'll set that to content type. And now for this one, we want to do multi-part form dash data. Because we're sending form data, we're not sending JSON this time. We're sending basically a blob. Basically, it's just basically we're just sending binary data. So like we don't want to do JSON for that. We'll do X token because we still need the token for this endpoint. It'll just simply be local storage dot get item. And it'll be token. And then we want to do, this is where we want to make our post request. So I want to do axios dot post. I want to use tempo literal syntax. And this time we're going to the upload endpoint. So we'll do user ID. User ID like that. And then we'll do the form data. And then the file options like that. And then it returns a promise. And then a catch. What I want to do, if the message is not equal to success, we want to log pick was not added to the server. Then I want to do set pick loading to false because that means that the pick isn't loading anymore. Then I want to do else if picture list, meaning the picture list is defined. I want to do temp array, which remember is what I made here. And I want to set that equal to, meaning the picture list already has data in it. I want to do res.data.object, which is that object, but then I also want to add that to the rest of the picture list like that. Else, I want to do temp array, which is equal to the object, like that. meaning that the picture list has nothing in it yet. And then right below that, I want to say if temp array.length is greater than 0, meaning that it should be. So there's no like errors. It's just basically for error handling and stuff like that. Then we can just create a new list. So we got to map through it again. So it'll be temp array.map. And I want to map the picture and the index. I want to return an expression. And basically I want to do the actual picture object, and then I want to add on there the picture ID again. Remember, we're adding it again after we update the list. So we got to map through and add the indexes all over again. Just in case there's like a place, if an index change that was before, like that was earlier in the list, and all the index will be thrown off. So I had to do it that way. And then set pictures to the new pick list that we just created. Then we want to toggle that map switch again. And then outside of this entire thing, I want to set pick loading to false. So basically, the picture won't be loading anymore or anything like that. And that's it for the add picture function here. I want to basically put the delete picture in here as well. And this is going to take the ID to picture. And basically, it's going to be the picture to be deleted. And that's going to be equal to the picture list and then ID of pick. So basically, that current picture object. And then what I want to do is I want to do let placeholder array, because I just basically made a temporary array. And I want to do picture list. And I want to basically map through it. And I want to do picture and then the ID, or the index. And I want to do, I want to map through it again. Wait. Oh, I forgot to filter it first. Yeah, no, before I do that, I actually want to filter this. So I want to do a new pick array really quickly, just create that. I just simply want to just filter this one. So I want to filter it so it'll be picture list filter. I basically want to filter it to where picture ID is not equal to the ID of pick, which is the one we want to delete, so it'll return them all except that one. And then I basically want to map through that and give the indexes again. So we'll do picture, and then we'll put picture ID. We'll set it to the IDX like that. And then now I want to just set it to that. So set pictures to the placeholder array. And then I want to delete the pictures. I want to do delete. Oh, you know what? I call this delete picture as well. Let me call this delete the picture, just to make it different. I want to delete the picture, and I want to basically pass in that picture to be deleted. And I want the picture created at, because that's what I use since it's always unique. And so then I want to toggle that map switch again to let it know that there's been some changes. And that's it for this one here. Remember the delete picture method we basically brought in, and that's inside of our state file. And that basically is just our Axios post request for deleting the picture on the back end. I mean, you can put it inside of here, like you can put it inside of here just like the other two or the other method here, but basically I just left it in there. I was a little lazy. Um, let's see here. So, but I was really in a hurry. It wasn't really laziness. It was just I was in a hurry. Let's see this use effect. I'm gonna just cut that part out. So this use effect hook fires when the picture list state, oops, state changes. So basically, it's similar to the use layout effect hook. We want to actually put in there the map switch though. So like instead of just it being an empty array, we want to actually have it depend on something. So that'll fire. And so basically, when a component mounts, it fires once by default, and then basically it fires every time the map switch changes. So that's how that works. And then so we just simply want to do if picture list, meaning that it's defined, and user ID is not equal to empty, meaning the user is logged in. And I simply want to do grid items dot current. Remember, grid items is that reference, and we're using that to set the current value to it. So basically, basically it's the store inside of each render, so we don't get so this doesn't get lost each render, and we can't just set the state because the state will get set each time. There's other ways you can do it as well, like if the current value is equal to certain things, but you can use it if you use the reference. It's a lot quicker. It's a lot easier. We want to set this to an expression. Um, Before we do that, we actually need to say the picture list is greater than 0 as well. And now we want to do that grid items.current, and I want to just set that to an expression. And I want to basically pass in now. For what I'm using, I'm not using CSS grid. You can, but I want to I just use Material UI for this really quickly. And so what I'm gonna do is I gotta bring it in. So go to your terminal inside of wait one second. Uh, oh, okay. I was wondering why I had a problem right there. You want to go to your terminal and you want to cd into your client folder, whatever you called it, and you want to do npm install or yarn add, and you want to do app material, and then I think it was material, yep, dash UI core, like that, so that we can use it. I want to bring in the grid list from that material UI, and I want to set the columns attribute, and I want to set that to 4 because I want basically 4 pictures for each row. And I'm going to set the cell height, and I want that at 200. I know that's hard coded. You can. There's other things you can do as well for that. Um, so basically, I want to do. Let's see here. Picture list dot map. I just want the picture and the index again. But instead of mapping it, or like basically like replacing an object, I actually want to do something different. I want to do an expression here, and inside of here, I just simply want to do grid list tile, which basically is also for Material UI core. And I want to basically set the key, which basically in React you have to have a unique key index for each component if you're doing using a map function. Otherwise, it won't work. It'll give you an error. So you have to have that, and then grid item is what I'm going to make. And that component, it's simply going to, well, first I need to give it the key as well. We can give it the same key. And then I want to give it that picture index, which we can't use the key field because that's like specifically for React. So we can't just pass it in as a prop and use it. So I have to use it, like I have to pass it in again as another prop. And then basically the actual picture object. And then I also want to pass in that delete picture method. So delete the picture. That. Then that's it for this here. And then right after we do that, we want to basically set the grid list, which is the list of JSX components at our local component state. And I want to set that to grid items.current like that. And then basically, I want to do an else here. And I just want to do grid items.current is equal to null. And then I want to set grid list to null. And that basically just sets everything to null. So if it's basically if the user isn't logged in or there's no pictures, it'll just make sure everything is null for us. And then basically I want to do once again, because it'll ask us if we want to put in other dependencies for things and we don't want to. We'll do ESLint or ESLint disable next line like that. And then this is where we actually want to output things. So inside of here, first let me change this over now, like that. And inside of here, I want to just do an H1. I'm going to call it grid. This is just like to show like this is the album grid. We'll do a class name. And then we'll do grid title. And right below that, I want another div. I don't know what that is. There we go. And so basically, I want to do class name. I want to do grid button container. Remember, these are all inside of the app CSS. So now I'll do button. Then we add picture. We are add picture button. This will be on click. Open upload form. But remember, that basically just toggles the upload form and open and closes it. And you'll see why we use that in a second. And then class name of grid add button like that. And so now we want to basically put in a ternary. So we want to do open upload, which is what that local state variable is that we're changing. And basically, if it's true, we want to do an expression, and that's going to be a div. Everything wrapped in a single div here. And then we'll do another div, and then this one is going to have a class name of I did it like this. So basically, for the class name, it's another ternary. It's going to be open upload like this, because we can do that. And then what we want to do is the app form background, which is that see-through gray like dashboard that I made there. That's basically what this one is. So if it's true, and then if it's not true, we just simply want to do app form background of hidden. It's basically just makes it invisible. And then so inside there, I want to do another div. That div was just for the background for like for the visuals. For this one here, I want to do like But that other div was like for the background part, but this div here is gonna be like where the actual form is, and so it'll be class name app form container, and inside of there, I want to create the form. And so whenever we're uploading blob data, like basically whenever we're uploading like files, we want to do an inc type and closing type, and we want to do always set that to multi-part form data. And so we want to do inc type, and then multi-part form data like that. And then I want to do a method of post. And I want to do a class name of upload form. And then I want to pass in an on submit here. And then on submit, it'll just simply be add a picture. That I might have called add picture. Yeah, I did. Just call this add picture. That. And then I want to do a button inside of it. So I'll do a button. And this is basically the delete button. It'll be like a little X in the corner. It'll be upload form delete button. And it'll be an on click of upload, open upload form. Because what it's going to do is just going to toggle it. On open upload form is already going to be the open upload boolean is already going to be true. So then basically when this is clicked, it'll close the upload form. And then inside of there, I just want that what I showed you earlier with the and times and then semicolon like that. And then I want to do. Well, I put a break statement here. I'll just be consistent and put it there as I had it there already. Oops. Yeah. And basically, I want to do a paragraph, and I want to do upload a picture, and then I want to do last name, app label, like that, and then I want to do another break statement. And you don't have to put the. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of the break statements. I don't know why I put those there. Doesn't make sense. And so basically, I want to do an input, and it's going to be a type file. Then I want to on change. I want the name to be user image. It has to be the same as what we did for. Let me see, where is it? For the form data here, when we append it with this key, it has to be the same as that name for the input. And so now I want to do on change. I want that to simply be set pick file, which is that function. And then I want to do class name of app form input. And then let me see. I guess I can put the ID there too. So basically, you don't need the ID there, but I had it when I made it. Yeah, you really don't need the ID there. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of it. Anyways, so I want to do the image. And then the source is going to be basically pick file. No, I'm gonna get rid of that image. Alright, so basically I just want to put a button here. It's gonna be upload picture. It's gonna be last name, app form button. It's gonna be a type submit. And basically that'll be it for this. So we just have an input with the file. We're setting the pic file name and the actual file path and everything. Or the file. We set the form data to that input to get the data from it. And then basically we just we submit it. When it's submit, it closes the form. Oh, sorry about that. It closes the form inside of add picture. And then basically it'll submit it on the back end for us and everything. And yeah, that's it for that part. Really quickly, I gotta finish this ternary operator, so I'll just set that to null. And then I want to set pick loading as well. And that'll be a ternary as well for an expression. And inside of there, I just want a div. And inside of there, I just want style. Oops. Basically, I just want this to say loading, but then I want to set a style to it as well. Put these in separate lines here. So I want a style. Then I want a width. I want it to be 100%. I want text align to be center. I want the font size to be, to be 1.8 rem. And then for this, I just want to set it to null for the ternary. And then basically, right below that is the actual list of the actual items, the grid items, so the pictures. So that's when we use that grid items list JSX array. And I want to use not equal to null. And I want to basically show it. By default, you don't have to do the ternary because if it's null, it won't show anything anyway. But I'm just showing you how this will work. But basically, if it is null, you can also check if they're logged in and basically make it more dynamic to give them a message as well if you want to, which is why I did that. But just showing you that. So that's it for the actual rendering of the album grid. And so now I just simply want to work on the grid item component. So we can do that. Let me bring it up on my computer. And so basically I use the use effect hook for this one as well versus use snippet. And let me bring in use effect and the use state hooks. That's what I use there. And inside of here I want to bring in basically what I passed in when we mapped it. So in the album grid, when we mapped it out, I'm passing in the picture index in the picture and then in the method to delete the picture, which basically just emits it back up the index when the picture is deleted. And so I want to bring these in here. So it'll be picture index, then delete the picture like that. And then basically I want to create a couple of use state hooks on the pick data. That'll be set pick data, use state, empty string like that, and I want to do pick loaded. set pick loaded, use state, and I want to set that by default to false. And so now I want to create a function really quick here, and this function is going to convert that buffer data that we're retrieving out from the back end. Remember in our picture buffer, and it's going to convert it to base 64 string, which basically is used by HTML to basically read a picture. And so I'm gonna just call this array buffer to base 64. I want to bring in that buffer, which is just an array of binary. And so I'm gonna do let binary be equal to empty string like that, and then let the bytes, which is what it's basically gonna be like the number. It's an array of bytes, and so we gotta bring them in as like bytes, like a group of bytes at a time, because this is like buffering or whatever. And so we want to do is equal to empty array, and we want to slice. Then we want to call. Then we want to do new, and then it's called uint 8 array because it's UTF-8 encoded. I think is what that is. UTF-8 encoded, and basically I want to do pass in the buffer like that. And then for each right here, I simply want to do. You can call this whatever you want. I'll call it B, like that. And just simply want to do binary, and I want to just concatenate on a string, and I want to do from char code, and then B. And this is boilerplate. You definitely should have a snippet for this. This is the same every time when you're dealing with pictures. You want to return window. Oh, sorry about that. And you want to return window dot and then BTOA, and then that basically will return the actual string. And so inside of the use effect hook, I want to simply so this should run only once. I want to pass in the empty array. Remember, you want to do ESLint disable next line if you don't want to see the errors when you're actually like using your Chrome Dev tools or whatever to look into it, or whatever tools you're using. Like basically, if you don't want to see like the warnings or whatever, you can like just do that. So basically, I want to basically run that method. So I'm gonna do pick loaded, meaning that if it's equal to false. Remember, like I only want this to run once. So I'm gonna do const base 64 flag, which is basically what you need to put in front of the string in order for HTML to recognize it as that. Basically, the string is data and then image, and then specifically for what we want JPEG. Now you can do PNG as well. That's basically here you would want to check like what the MIME type is. For the images I use JPEG, but if they're PNG, you definitely want to check the MIME type, and then basically send back one depending on that. Like for instance, PNG or something for JPEG for this, and then you want to do base 64 like that, and then you want to put a comma. And so now what we want to do is we want to create the actual image string. And that's going to basically be the actual method, and that's where the actual buffer gets turned into the string, the base 64 string. And so basically when you log this, you'll get picture buffer.data, because basically the picture buffer is an object that Mongo returns, and so you want to actually get the data field of that. So when you log that, you'll see like, okay, you have to put .data there, not just picture buffer, or it'll give you a error because you won't see the data. So when you log it, you'll see that it's actually inside of an object. So you have to do .data there. And let me see. want to set the pick data. I want to set it to that base 64 flag plus the image string, because that's the entire string is both of these combined. So it starts with this, and then this here, which is just a string of characters. And then I want to set pick loaded to true, meaning that this should never run again. Then I want to do, unless it's remounted, and then I want to do, let's see, that'll be it for this. Then inside of the actual like expression here that we want to render, I want to set this to a class name of grid item, like that. Then I want to do a button here. Oops. So I want to do a button here, but first let me just set this to React. I want to do button like that. And then I want it to basically just be an X symbol again like this. And let me put this on a separate line. And so what I want to do is on click. I just simply want to delete the picture like that, not bind it. I want to bind this, and then the picture index like that. And then I want to do a class name of grid delete button, like that. And then I want to do image. And for the source, I want to do the pick data. And then for the alt, I want to do picture title, which remember is the one without the timestamp. That's just the name of the image. And then I want to do a style as well. And so I want to do style. And inside of there, I just simply want to do a width. I don't know why that keeps doing that. Width. I want it to take up the entire container, so 100%. Then I want to do a height, 100%. Then I want to do overflow of hidden. So this is if you wanted to like add a border radius and you wanted to like for each grid item and you want to have the picture have like curvy corners, you can do like overflow of hidden like that. And then I want a z index of 1. Like that. And then right below that I want to have an h2. I just want to do well, actually I don't need the h2 here. I'll leave that part out. So basically this is what we have here. This is the entire application. I know it's a lot. I'm gonna go back through the album grid and the grid item together because that was a lot. Okay, so first we're bringing in these from the context, the user ID and the picture delete picture method, which is the Axios request. We have a few states here that are local. This is the array of pictures. This grid items is the array of and actually I didn't even use that there. But this grid items is where is it? Oh, here it is. Grid items list. This basically is the array of JavaScript components, like JSX components, which is basically just this here. It's an array of these because we're mapping through, and we're creating a grid list tile with a grid item inside of it for each one. And basically, these are just basically used to run certain hooks, like the use effect hook. Open upload just open and closes the form here. We're just retrieving the images here. And then we toggle the map switch, which basically just once we retrieve them, we just map through and give them an index and we create the components like that. We're deleting one, we're getting it, we're removing it from the array, and then we're sending it to the back end. Delete it based off the created ad, which should be unique for that user. And then we also have to give it a new index. If we delete one that's early in the list, we have to obviously give a new index for it to work. And we're adding the picture here, and we're using the form data by setting the name of the input file, the file input name, equal to the same name as the key for the form data in order for it to work. Because we use prevent default, or we use basically the submit from the form. This is even not prevent default because we're submitting something. And so we basically are using this and grabbing it from there, and that's how we can do it. And then we're getting the MIME type as well to check if it's one of those MIME types or not. And then let's see what else. Basically down here, we're just basically just creating everything for the styling and how we want to render it. And then for each one, when we pass in like the picture and the key, we basically pass it in here. And then inside of here on mount for each one of these, it basically converts it from binary to that base64 string, and then we basically just pass that in there to the source. So we're not streaming the pictures from a URL or anything like that. We're actually grabbing the entire picture data and putting it here like that. So that's basically how that works. Also, on the back end, you can do like FS, and like you can create a temp directory on the person's computer, and you can put the pictures there, and then you could try to actually use that path from the back end and pass that back to the front end and use that if you wanted to. There's many different ways you can do it, but basically, that's just like a quick rundown of these two components here. Last but not least, I want to basically deploy it to GitHub. So I'll do that in the next video. Let me just cut this one and I'll be right back.